Welcome to my first ever tutorial online. This has been requested by many of you, especially in places like Facebook. So let's hop right in. You saw me there spraying my watercolors with water just to wake them up, and here I am sketching a simple apple tree branch where I'm going to be placing the blossoms. I do not have a reference photo for this, so I will be improvising as I start painting here. The paper is a hot pressed paper, and it is New York Central Art Supply paper. I usually use cold pressed paper, but for this tutorial I decided to do hot press, just because hot press has really smooth surface, so it's very easy to do the ink work afterwards on it. And the finished painting is going to be about 10 inches by 7 inches. I'm using only half of the block of the paper there, and I wanted to keep the painting kind of small, so it won't take me so long to finish the painting for this tutorial. Now that I have started with the first apple blossom there, I'll tell you a little bit about the watercolors I'm using for this tutorial. They are the Michello Mission watercolors, gold glass. I like to use these a lot with my flower paintings. They stay very soft and they are very easy to wake up with a little bit of water, so they are ready to go really fast, and the pigments are very vibrant. They are very nice for flower painting, and my go-to anytime I need to use pink, which in this painting I will be using a lot of pink, is Winsor Newton Opera Rose color. It's really bright neon color, and you can tone it down with a little bit of other colors and yellow, and if you tone it down with yellow it gives you a beautiful orange, bright orange that you see in a lot of my other paintings too. The brush that I'm using there for the whole painting is a traditional Chinese writing and painting brush. I have become very fond of this type of brushes for my floral paintings because they are so versatile. You can use them for large areas. They hold a lot of pigment. If you use it on the side, you can cover a lot of area, and then when you need to do detailed work, they come to a really fine point. And for this apple blossom painting, I'm doing a lot of kind of drawing and painting with the brush, so the fact that it comes to such a fine point really is helpful for this little flowers that I'm painting here. Since the apple blossoms are really delicate and transparent flowers, I am using the opera rose, very watered down opera rose, and I have mixed it with the permanent yellow light, just so that they are not so neon color, but they are more soft pink color. And I am tapping the paint with my paper there to get some of the pigment away, so it looks like it's more transparent. The light comes through in some of the petals, and then I'm adding darker color, which is quinacridone permanent rose and quinacridone permanent magenta. They are two colors from these paints that I'm using, and little by little I'm also starting to paint here the little leaves that are starting to grow on the apple branch. As you have been watching me painting here, you must have noticed that I don't paint the flower petals or the leaves solid color, but I leave a lot of little white speckles of the white of the paper showing. So in a little bit you could say that I'm drawing there, but that's one of those secrets why my paintings have so much white little light spots showing in them. This is a very effective technique that adds a lot of interest and movement into the painting, as the light seems to be playing all around the painting. People often ask me if I use masking fluid, and as you can see, I don't. I used to before, but after mastering this technique, there is no use or need for masking fluid anymore. This is so much easier way of leaving all that white that is so attractive in flower painting especially. I also leave these spots into the branches of the tree, and in the end you're also going to see that I leave a lot of white into the background as well. So all that adds into the sparkle that makes the painting so fun and delightful in the end. And the other thing in the way that I paint that is really nice is that I don't really have to worry about if my petals don't separate, or if my colors run, or wet touches the other wet part and they melt together. In the end, when I do my ink work, I can go in there and separate all those petals from each other, and it all makes sense, even though it might look like a hot mess by the time I'm finished. With this apple blossom painting that I'm doing, I'm a little bit more careful because it's a very delicate painting and light painting. So I'm a little bit more cautious that I don't let things run like crazy. But some of my other paintings, like when I paint tulips or roses, or I just let poppies, I let colors run and water do its work a lot. And I do a lot of happy accidents, what I call cauliflowers, whatever, when you drop water and it just bursts. And those kinds of things actually increase or make the painting more interesting, more fun to look at. And with the ink, you have more places to go and put ink lines, and gives the separations for the petals of the flowers when you have those kinds of accidents that happen with watercolors. For the leaves, I used mostly the sap green, and I break it down with burnt sienna so that the green is not so neon green, but more natural green, and I drop a little bit of the pink color in them here and there, as well as yellow, just so that they have variety in the leaves. And for the branch, I used mostly burnt sienna, and I darkened it with those two violet colors that I have on the palette there. I also have been adding there some darkness onto the leaves, on the shadow sides, and my light comes from the left top part of the painting. I'm now starting to paint the background, and I'm using a mixture of cobalt turquoise hue and cobalt cerulean blue deep colors that are on that on my palette from the Micello paints, and I'm putting some water down and very watered down blue color, and as I go I touch some of the flowers, I touch the branches here and there, and then I go and I add the green, I add a little bit of pink, so it looks like the flowers are bleeding and the leaves are bleeding into the background. I also do not touch, and I don't really worry if I touch the flowers or the blue goes a little bit on top of the flowers or leaves, but I don't touch and worry about touching the blue everywhere, onto the branch and the leaves and the buds, whatever. I leave a lot of white in between the blue and the branch and the blue and the flowers, and that will be also a way to show the light reflecting all over the place in this painting. There are also white areas that I leave onto the background. You can see in the blue there are a lot of white areas, and that also just adds the interest and the idea of this painting being, you know, full of sun and springtime sparkle. As I continue to work on the background here, I did notice that this hot pressed paper gives the painter longer time to work on the background, as it stays wet longer than a cold press, at least from my experience here. It seems like it doesn't absorb the paper, I mean the water, so readily. So that's really nice when you are having to work on larger areas, and it still allows you to go back and drop paint here and there, and the colors keep on melting together, and it is a total plus for a watercolor artist. As you can see, I leave the edges of my background quite irregular, you could say. Random lines, light colors, mostly on the very edges, some darker, lots of variety. I go off the page just here and there, but very seldom I fill the whole painting with the color. I like to leave the background, the edges showing, and then I can do my line work. I feel like it just keeps the painting somehow more light, more interesting, and it's not so heavy. The paint, I feel like when you put the background from corner to corner, edge to edge, it just becomes heavy, the painting. So that's just what I like to do. Everybody has a difference, what they prefer, but this is what I prefer, and I put spots outside the edges to just give some variety, and it adds to the line work then in the end. So here I drop a few drops of blue into the background before I take my hair dryer and start drying the painting and get it all dry before I start putting my spots onto the painting, which I'm here starting to do. I use all different colors that I have used during the painting and just randomly put spots onto the flowers, leaves, and the background everywhere. Try not to overdo it. For this one I had a little bit trouble. I would have liked to get bigger spots in there, but all my spots were just the same and I had to stop putting spots before I overdid it, which very often happens with me, and I have ruined paintings by putting too many spots in it. Now here I am starting to do my outline work, and if you're gonna see that I outline everything, all the edges of every petal, every branch, every white spot, and also when the color variety in the leaves or petals is there, that will define where the shadow areas are. And when you put the white spots outline, it also brings out the sparkle of the sun onto the leaves and branches and petals. And there you can see the shadow part of the leaf that was now brought out by the line work. I think the line work makes the painting more interesting. It makes really gives the painting definition. I'm able to separate all the petals, and it all kind of starts making sense where everything is. As I continue to outline everything, I make sure that I get all the spots outlined and make decisions on the petals, you know, which petal is front of the other petal, or leaves as well. I use very fine ink pens that are waterproof, and like for this painting I'm using only 0.05 millimeter tips, and if it is a darker painting I might go something a little bit thicker, like 0.1 or 0.2, even if it's really dark painting or parts of the painting. But generally for any lighter parts I only use this 0.05 millimeter tips. There are many different kinds of or brands of these ink pens, and you can get them from any art store or Amazon, and they're called Pigma Micron, Archival Ink, Staedtler Pigment Liner, Pentel Point Liner, Faber-Castell. Any one of them works. They don't last very long, these very fine point ink pens, especially on a cold pressed paper, because the paper is very rough and the point is so delicate. So I almost go through 1 or 2 of these pens per painting, depending on the size of the painting. It makes sense for me to order these pencils as bulk order. It's epoxies of 10 of them and so on. So I go through them like nobody's business. And here I just continue doing my line work. You can see that there are lots of white that is touching the branch and the leaves. I just leave every white showing. More white showing, the more it just sparkles the painting. And here I go and I start doing the outline of the background, and you can see how carefully I follow the color and I get all the interesting contours of the background there. It just makes the whole painting more interesting as instead of having straight lines. And that's not something that happens in the nature. So nature is very random, and so also to your pictures, your paintings that you do be kind of random and interesting. Finishing up my outlining of the background, I'll go also and get all the white areas that are inside the background within the blue, and that'll then complete this painting, and I'm gonna be ready to go and sign the painting. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to look at this tutorial and follow me along. I really have enjoyed doing this. To my first experience, I have struggled a lot with the technology, but it's all fun learning as I go along here. Give me feedback, honest feedback. Tell me what would you like to maybe see in the future, and I see if I might be able to do another one of these, maybe something a little bit more colorful next time and more loose. Hey, if you decided to try your hand on this painting, I would like to see how it turned out. You can send me a photo of it at the Anne Gandalfo artist page through Messenger in Facebook. Thanks!